Chapter 2. What the Garden Keeps. The recognition hit before the logic did. Kess took 3 steps toward the creature before Thane's hand found her shoulder, light and steady. It was a reminder the wasteland had taught them both, things that looked like answers usually weren't. She stopped, and the creature waited. The guardian held its ground with the patience of a being that no longer measured time at all. Root legs shifted in the crystallized soil, a slow repositioning that should have looked threatening and didn't. The fruit cluster face turned toward her and stayed there, steady and luminous. The silence between them felt less like distance than like held breath. The voice arrived without sound. "The sister, who seeks." "You came following the old markers, Blackbird's trail." "Jace," she said it aloud. The word felt strange in the tight, thick air, too small for what she meant by it. Too ordinary for what she was looking at. The fruit cluster pulsed, slow and gold, and the mental voice returned, warm and careful. "We remember your face in the maps." The careful lines drawn with love and fear. Vera had her scanner raised, but had stopped reading it. She was staring at the creature, the way she stared at engines that shouldn't be running. Caught between frightened and fascinated, and clearly finding no comfortable ground between them. "The harmonic patterns," she said quietly, almost to herself. "They're not chaotic. Someone is organizing them." "He's found," Pedia said. She had moved forward without Kess noticing, her attention already fixed on a point the instruments couldn't detect. Her voice carried the certainty of someone who had seen this before in a different form. "Is it?" Thane's voice was flat. He was working something through and wasn't ready to share it. The guardian moved closer, and up close, the transformation became more intricate rather than less. Patterns etched into the bark skin spiraled according to some logic Kess couldn't read. Light moved beneath the surface the way blood moved beneath her own skin, slow and purposeful and alive. She had spent 5 years imagining this moment, but she had never once imagined it like this. Standing here, she understood why. Nothing she could have imagined would have come close. "Jace," she said again. "Are you still in there?" The mental voice grew quieter and more particular, the way someone's voice changes when they're remembering something real. "We remember teaching you to read star charts. You were 8 years old. You kept rotating the map to match the direction you were facing. We kept telling you the map doesn't move, only you do." A pause that felt almost like a breath. "You never quite believed us." The voice shifted again, finding another memory. "We remember the day before departure. The commissary on level 6. You brought those terrible oatmeal bars and said they were for luck. We ate 2 of them and didn't tell you they were stale. Your face already looked like you were trying not to be afraid." Something loosened in her chest, something she hadn't known was clenched. 5 years of grief and refusal and hope all at once. This was what undid it. Not a dramatic reunion, not proof, not explanation. Just her brother remembering how she'd held a map when she was 8. Just the terrible oatmeal bars she'd brought to a commissary table because she didn't know what else to do with the fear. "What happened to the others?" Thane asked. His voice had come back from wherever it had gone, steadier now, the soldier in him taking over. "Blackbird, the whole team." The fruit cluster dimmed, a slow fade that felt like sorrow, expressed in the only language currently available to it. The words that came were heavy with it. 2 returned to the sky before the choice time came. 1 tends the deep memories in the first city. 1 tends this garden with us. Another pause, heavier than the ones before it. 1 chose the final sleep. Jace's fate didn't fit any of the categories the Descent Corps used when they wrote up their reports. "You chose this," Kess said. This time, she recognized the register completely. The tone her brother had used when he was being honest about something difficult. The boundary time came. The old flesh could not hold what we were becoming. A pause. "The choice was simple, Kess. die fighting the change, or live by accepting it. We chose to become the bridge to tend the conversation between what was and what grows. The conversation, Vera repeated slowly. She had finally looked at her scanner again. Whatever it was showing her had stripped the professional skepticism from her face and left something rawer underneath. You're not just surviving the taint, you're working with it. The words came without speech. The taint is not separate from us. We are not separate from it. A pause. The words you use, corruption, infection, they describe a war. What grows here is not a war. There is only a conversation, and like all conversations, it changes everyone who participates. Thane had gone very still, and Kess caught it before she understood it. The quality of his stillness was different from combat readiness, different from caution. This was the stillness of a man who has just heard something, name him accurately, and is deciding what to do about it. The Guardian turned its fruit cluster face toward him with what felt like deliberate attention. This time, the precision was surgical, not a wound. You carry the blood-sent strong warrior, who remembers. The taint sings harmony with your gift, and has sung it for 15 years. My gift, Thane said, and his voice had shed its flatness entirely now. A rawer note sat underneath. Came from training and practice. It came from exposure. The mental voice was steady and gentle. 15 years ago. A mission that ended badly in the deep reaches. You lost your team, and you carried the guilt of it. Somewhere inside, the grief you buried the fact that you had also carried more than grief home. A gift you have used every day since to protect other people's lives. Kess watched Thane absorb this. The Guardian had known exactly where to find the wound. It had known the mission, the timeline, the guilt, and it had spoken to all of it with the practiced gentleness of someone who had delivered this particular truth many times before. Which meant it had done this before with other teams, other soldiers carrying other hidden integrations. The kindness was not new, it was practiced. Pyria caught her eye across the clearing. The look lasted only a moment, but it held something Kess hadn't expected, not alarm, but recognition. It was the look of someone noticing a pattern they'd been watching for. The silence stretched. Vera turned her scanner on Thane without asking, her hands moving before her manners caught up with them. The crystal face cycled through colors, and she looked at the readout and then looked at him, her expression landing somewhere between alarm and apology. Thane, she said carefully, you're resonating with the ambient field. You have been since we landed. The veteran's jaw worked, and he looked at the scanner and then away from it. My whole team died on that mission. It answered gently, the same gentleness that had delivered difficult truths before and learned how to carry them carefully. Some chose the deep sleep. Some walked the crystal path still, in the first city, tending the old memories. The presence in their minds grew softer. Would you see them again? They died because of decisions I made. They chose because of the love you gave them. The deep memories hold no blame. A beat, only gratitude. Kess watched the offer land. She watched him decide not to believe it, and watched that decision fail quietly, the argument against it never really about the facts. Pyria had knelt beside one of the impossible flowers while they talked. It was neither quite glass, nor quite crystal. It grew from corrupted earth, as though the earth had always intended it to. She touched its edge with one finger, and it rang out a single clear note. The first city, she said, looking up at the Guardian. The energy signature we came for, it's there. The urgency came modulated through enormous patience, the feeling of a message that had been waiting a very long time to be delivered. Yes, the Remembrance Core holds the old knowledge. It explains why your skylights dim, why your crystals tire and fail, and why the Driftspires are dying by degrees while your leaders argue about the mathematics of the decline. A pause. But the guardians of the first city will not speak to those who arrive armored in fear. They speak only to bridgewalkers, to those who have stopped treating the conversation as a threat. Kess looked at the activation stud on her light gear. The protective field hummed faintly against her skin, steady and familiar. The closest thing to safety the blow offered. Removing it meant accepting whatever came next. Transformation, understanding, something she didn't have a word for yet. The below had never been in the habit of offering guarantees. "If we do this," she said, "if we trust you, can we still go back, and can we carry a warning to the Driftspires? Bridgewalkers can speak to both Skysong and Earthdream. The warning can be carried." The Guardian let that settle before continuing. "But sister, who seeks, home is not the place you came from. Home is understanding where you belong." It was not quite an answer, and she filed that away too. Thane spoke first, his gaze somewhere in the middle distance where it had been since the Guardian said, 15 years. "I've been carrying ghosts for a long time." His jaw worked once. "If there's a chance I could see them again, and it wouldn't be the wreckage I've been picturing for 15 years. He stopped. Started again, simpler. "I'm in. The readings here could change everything for the Driftspires," Vera said. The engineer in her was closing the argument the rest of her was still having. "I have to understand how, and I can't walk away from this and not understand how." She looked down at her own hands, at calluses built from years of solving problems no one had solved for her first. "I just don't know yet what it leaves me after." Perea was already standing, already composed, ready. Her people had been waiting for this conversation across generations. Still, at the edge of it, she pressed one hand flat against her sternum, checking for solid ground beneath whatever was about to change. They all looked at Kess. She thought about the transmission log in her pack, the corners worn soft from 5 years of reaching for it in the dark. She thought about a child rotating a map to match the direction she was facing. She thought about someone patient enough to explain it again and again. "The map doesn't move, only you do." She deactivated her light gear. The taint came in like a tide finding shore. Not the violent assault she had braced herself for, not the corruption the briefings described, not the death that 3 centuries of fear had promised her. It was warm and strange, tasting of copper and, beneath the copper, the sharp clean smell of ozone right before a storm breaks. Her brother's voice filled a place in her mind she hadn't known was empty. Trust. Trust is the first word in every conversation. Underneath it, so faint she almost missed it, was a presence that was not her brother's voice. It did not introduce itself. It simply recognized the shape of the message Jace had sent 5 years ago, the same 11 seconds she had memorized down to the static. It was the private certainty of recognizing your own handwriting on a letter you don't remember writing. Around her, one by one, the others followed.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.